And welcome back to the Clear Jets podcast. We host Ben Blessington and Michael Nania. Well, Michael, we've been promising it. The offensive coordinator candidate series, our first one of the series. Greg Olson, the former Raiders offensive coordinator, a popular choice among Jets fans to be the next Jets offensive coordinator. I feel like a large contingent of that hinges on the Jets getting Derek Carr, but regardless, he has turned into a popular name in the search. And as promised, we decided to bring in somebody who knows a hell of a lot more about these candidates than we do at this point. And that is why we are joined by Marcus Johnson, who is a contributor for at the Silver and Black, which is the SB Nation website that covers the Raiders, and Tape Don't Lie. Marcus, how's it going, man?
Doing good, man. How you guys doing? I appreciate you guys having me on.
We're doing great. I think, as I mentioned, Greg Olson is a very popular candidate, and Jets fans are very thirsty for good quarterback play, which is why I think Olson is in the bunch. Maybe they're thinking that might attract a Derek Carr. I know there's some fans who are anti bringing in a guy like Derek Carr, but I think the possibility of pairing Derek Carr with an offensive coordinator he has experience with is intriguing. So with that said, let's just hop right into it. Marcus, Greg Olson took over he was the offensive coordinator under John Gruden, but when John Gruden got fired in 2021, it seems like he took over a larger part in the offense. How would you describe how the offense kind of shifted in 2021 when Greg Olson took over sole running of the offense?
I think the way that it really shifted, it became more of a pass-first offense. Like they're, passing on first down a lot more play action on first down. I think that was the main shift that you saw from John Gruden over to Greg Olson. John Gruden was more like, a little bit, he had some newer elements into his offense from having Greg Olson around and Greg Olson being in the league so much longer than, John Gruden. When he left Tampa, the league changed a lot. And when he went back to Oakland, he brought in Greg Olson to kind of update his offense a little bit so he can have a more updated spread West Coast offense with like RPOs and stuff like that. So he got a lot of that from Greg and what Greg was running in Jacksonville, right? So what happened when Greg Olson took over, he became more of a throwing on first down, a lot more wide receiver screens, trying to manufacture yards through the air, a lot more of that than, focusing on the run game. What's one thing Greg Olson, does, he's more of a pass first guy than a run first guy. So, that's more of, putting up points. And that's kind of what you want to see in today's NFL is more of a pass first on first down. Of course, you want to mix in the run game and have a good run game 100%. But like passing on first down, play action on first down, a lot of things. That's what Greg Olson kind of brings. And he has that more of mentality of attacking downfield too as well. And also, Henry Ruggs ended up doing really something stupid, but when Henry Ruggs was playing, he definitely maximized him. He maximizes the X receiver too. That's one thing Greg Olson does. So for somebody like Garrett Wilson, he would find ways to get him the ball, isolate him. Does a really good job of that. He finds definitely a lot of ways to isolate an X receiver. Allen Robinson had his biggest season with Greg Olson as the OC, so he does a really good job at that too.
Yeah, and looking more at the passing game specifically, I mean, you mentioned a few things that he likes to do, but what would you say are some of his overall priorities for the passing games, things he emphasizes accomplishing through the air, and just some of his go-to concepts through the air as well?
A couple of go-to concepts. He likes to do a 3x1, right? So he loves 3x1s. He loves doing stacks with a 3x1, and that's what I'm talking about, isolating that X receiver or whoever that dog is. He likes to isolate those guys, and the isolation. Well, you'll see a lot of different routes. You'll see some slants. You'll see some fades. You'll see some, sluggos. You'll see a lot of different routes when he isolates that X receiver and tries to isolate coverage that way. So that's what you got a lot of see from a lot of his passing game. But most of it's usual West Coast stuff. You're going to see the choice routes there, right? See a lot of the choice routes, right? You're going to see, a lot of RPOs too. He does a lot of RPOs as well. A lot of RPO wide receiver screens, things like that. So his passing game maximizes the X, but you're going to see a lot of the West Coast elements mixed in with some college elements that Greg Olson likes to do. So I mean, that's something that he likes to do when he's passing the football. And another thing that you might not see as well is targeting tight ends. I would say that in the passing game, he doesn't target tight ends as much. He did mix it in with Darren Waller, but you can line up Darren Waller wherever you want. You can go back to 2018 with Jared Cook. They did a pretty good job of doing that, mixing it up and lining up Jared Cook, isolating him one-on-one with the tight end. So yeah, if the tight end is the best wide receiver, he does that, but it's more about him maximizing one guy. He does like to focus on one wide receiver and getting that guy the ball a lot. And if he comes over there, it's probably be Garrett Wilson. And yeah, he'd love
Right.
that, because that's definitely what he was missing when Henry Ruggs went away, right? Their Raiders were missing that last year, kind of the X guy that kind of fits his offense, and he was a little lost a little bit, I would say. But if he has that X or that wide receiver outside, he's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to think about, hearing you describe that. I'm just picturing Garrett Wilson and this offense getting fed the ball because, I mean, he got a lot of targets as a rookie, but it still felt like there was more on the table looking at some of his route running. So it's fun to think about that. But looking at the other aspect of the offense, the run game, you mentioned he's more of a pass-first guy, but when it does come to putting the ball on the ground, how would you describe his run scheme and some of the things that he likes to do in the ground game?
Yeah, last year, I mean, there's a lot of wide zone, inside zone. So I mean, I would expect that coming from just where he comes from coming from the Tampa Bay, working with John Gruden in Tampa Bay, now having that kind of West Coast feel. I mean, there's a lot of wide zone, inside zone. So basically, mostly zone. You won't see a lot of power. Rare that you'll see some power. If you do, it'll be like a counter or something like that. So it's mostly the outside zone, wide zone game, which I think the Jets are. I mean, Brees Hall is something he really ran in college, and that's something he's very familiar with. So I could see him coming in there and trying to implement that run scheme, because that is his main run scheme, because he went right back to the Rams, and that's what the Rams love to do. They love that wide zone. That's kind of how they set up their whole offense. So that's kind of the run scheme you'll see. But he's just not yeah, he's just not a run first guy. I frustrated a lot of Raiders fans that he didn't like to run the ball that much. And you won't see him like just feeding somebody. He's going to try to maximize, to do some screens. He's a big wide receiver screen guy. He actually kind of invented the wide receiver screen in Purdue as the OC over there. I forgot who the head coach was when they were at Drew Brees over there. So so he's a big wide receiver screen guy. So he likes to manufacture through the air more than running the football. So, but when he does run the football, it's wide zone, inside zone.
How would you describe the success with those receiver screens? Because I think I've heard for about a decade Jets fans complaining about bubble screens, whether it was Adam Gase or Marty Morningweg or whoever. It seems like the bubble screen is enemy number one.
Yeah, it depends on the team they're playing, right? And I think eventually people know that Greg Olson likes to run screens, man.
Right.
He's been doing it for so long, and like I said, he's been doing it for over 20 years. He's one of the innovators in wide receiver screens. He has a lot of them. There's different modes of them, right? Yeah, there's a lot of them. He's very creative with it. He'll do a lot of swing routes with running backs. Like he'll get the running back in space on some of the screens. He's just a lot he'll do like a throwback this way and come back and throw a screen on the opposite side. He maxes, he has a different variety of them, because he's it's one of his part of his offense is those wide receiver screens. But it's gonna happen, and sometimes it might frustrate you. I know no offensive fan loves a wide receiver screen.
Yeah,
Unless it works.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it has to work, and then we like it. But yeah, he has a lot of variety with it, right? It's just not just the same old wide receiver screen over and over and over again. But yeah, you're gonna see some, but it's gonna maximize it. You're gonna see like a wide receiver, running back do it. You might see a wide receiver do it. You might see him come out with two running backs and do a different screen with a different running back, like Michael Carter or something like that. So you'll mix it up. But you'll see some wide receiver screens for sure.
So obviously we mentioned Derek Carr. That's I think the big draw and the reason that his name has popped up a lot in terms of why the Jets might hire him as OC. How did you feel Carr fit the system? I mean, it seems like they were a good fit. Do you think it brought out the best in Derek Carr?
I would say so. I think they brought out the best in Derek Carr. And one thing about Greg Olson, even if you don't say he's the greatest OC in the world, I mean, he's a great quarterback coach. So he's just great for quarterbacks. He's just has great drills. You check out some John Gruden's clinic. It's online. You type in John Gruden clinic on YouTube. I think you'll find it. But he talks a lot of the drills that Greg Olson did. He did a lot of great work with Jared Goff. And did a lot of great work with Baker Mayfield this year too. Kind of got him a little bit better and kind of raised his, the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of his reputation a little bit.
Yeah.
Reputation went down. They raised it a little bit, and that's a little bit of Greg Olson. Greg Olson does that with quarterbacks, and I think that's even if you have Zach Wilson still there, I think he can work with Zach Wilson and actually get some better play out of him a little bit with how he drills pocket presence and things like that. Because Derek Carr never really had good pocket presence until Greg Olson got there, and it improved a little bit. I mean, it never was great, but you saw some improvement in because they drill things, and Derek Carr plays on his toes a little bit. He got Derek Carr on his flat and his feet and things like that, and saw Derek Carr be more accurate, and so he does that with a lot of quarterbacks. So I mean that's why he kind of got Derek Carr to play to the best of his potential, and with Gruden too. And Gruden's a great quarterback coach as well. But Olson, that's what he does the best. Is I think he comes in there and he can work with the quarterback. He'll build a system around the quarterback. He's not gonna try to, like, if the guy runs. He did really well with Terrell Pryor back in the day. He had got Terrell Pryor looking like a quarterback a little bit. He does really well.
I forgot about that. That's true. He was.
Yeah,
he had that 90-yard TD run.
Yeah. So he had him looking like a quarterback a little bit. So he does really well with that. So even with Zach Wilson, I mean, if he came in there, I think he would help Zach Wilson a little bit too. You see probably a better player if Zach embraced it. If he went into it and I'm going to do these drills and I'm going to drill it. Yeah, it helps, man. You could look at Jared Goff. Jared Goff year 1 was awful. And then Greg Olson came in there year 2 and they went to playoffs. So
Michael, I have a quick question for you. Because Marcus, you bring up the variety of quarterback drills that Greg Olson has implemented. Michael, have we seen under Mike LaFleur and Rob Calabrese a single quarterback drill that isn't a Jets quarterback just shuffling over the orange cinder block back and forth?
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, it's not like we get to watch the whole practice, but when they do put videos out, I feel like that is the only thing that I've seen.
It's that little roadblock. They just go back and forth, and that's it. That's the only drill.
Greg Olson has a crazy drills. He does this one drill, like he'll put you in the pocket and he'll have a bunch of guys put pads in their backs and they just collapse around you.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, we have not seen that. We have not seen that.
We need that. Zach Wilson badly needs that.
Exactly, right? And you can see with that different Derek Carr and Jared Goff, man, those type of drills.
Yeah.
And he has some crazy quarterback drills, to be honest. And he can drill pocket presence and, have you playing better at a higher level than you actually will. I mean, Blake Bortles threw 35 touchdowns with Greg Olson. That
is nuts.
That's crazy. Right? So there's something there with Greg with young quarterbacks. And I think that's kind of the benefit of him if he becomes your OC, even if you get a little tired of some of the wide receiver screens he throws. So
yeah, and that's great to hear, and it's a good long-term thing for an OC to have because, whether it's Zach Wilson, whether they draft someone else, whoever it may be, just to have that quarterback coaching expertise is always going to be helpful because the quarterback position is always number one. But looking at his scheme and how it relates to the quarterback position, like you said, it seemed like he did a great job of getting the most out of Derek Carr. Would you say that Carr is kind of the ideal quarterback for his scheme, or how would you kind of picture the perfect quarterback to run some of the things that he likes to run?
I think Derek Carr is he's a good fit for this scheme. I wouldn't say he's a perfect fit. I would say the perfect fit for this scheme is probably a guy that can make plays outside of his legs a little bit more. I think with the West Coast, it kind of benefits that. And Greg Olson, he drills that too. He drills scramble drills. So, if you go watch Hard Knocks 2019 with the Raiders, you'll see John Gruden chasing Derek Carr around in circles, right? And they drill those things. And I think a quarterback that can move and make some plays with his legs, I think that will help kind of if you kind of get into sometimes Greg Olson, he has some concepts that he likes that I don't like, right? And I think a mobile quarterback can kind of maybe make up for that sometimes. And I think the West Coast offense fits a mobile quarterback. You see Patrick Mahomes in the West Coast. You even see some other guys that run the West Coast offense that, get out of the pocket and can make some plays. And I think you need a quarterback like that a little bit. But he's going to fix the pocket presence, things like that. But if you can, and the play is not there, right? The pocket presence comes with getting out of the pocket and making a play too. And I think that's kind of the ideal quarterback in my opinion, because, to me, everybody runs the West Coast offense. So you get to like week 9, everybody knows West Coast plays by the time that they line up, and you got to have the play caller and you got to have a quarterback that can make plays in the second half of the season. So that's kind of say the ideal fit. But Derek Carr is a great fit in the offense because it's a short passing offense at the end of the day. And that's what he's awesome there. Not really a lot of intermediate passes like he had to do this year. Intermediate is not his thing. Throwing outside the numbers a lot is not his thing. And we saw his completion percentage take a nosedive because of that. So if he goes back to the West Coast, I think his completion percentage will go back up to where it was before. And he'll be able to make some plays just knowing Greg Olson's offense just already. So
you alluded to some of the concepts you didn't like. And I have to say, Marcus, up until this point, maybe you should be Greg Olson's agent because he sounds like a home run hire. We haven't heard too much about the weaknesses.
Yeah.
What are some of those concepts you don't like, and then what are some of the other weaknesses you would say from your time watching and studying Greg Olson?
Yeah, because I mean, we can get into him as the play caller. The play caller, I think he's. I'll be honest, with you guys. I think he's a little bit average as a play caller, because he's so up and down. One game, he'd be like, "Wow, that's a great game plan," and then the next game, you're like, "What are you doing?" And that's why I felt in the playoffs. The playoffs, I was ready. I was ready to get rid of him. So, I mean, he just ran. I don't know if you guys heard the play Hank. I don't know. It's Hank is curl flats. If you know, if you're
Okay.
familiar with that, it's an old school 1980s Bill Walsh West Coast play. He likes to run Hank a little too much for me against cover two teams, and it's just a play that just has no explosiveness to it. It's curl flats on both sides, and it's just no. It just doesn't work. And then he just kind of drilled that. That's the play he called for the last play of the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I watched that. I think yesterday I saw a lot of people were talking about it, like blaming Carr for it, and I was like, "That's the exact play they ran. It's just curls and flats on both sides."
Yeah, and they ran that 3 times in that drive. So just imagine, the linebacker there. He's like, "Oh, it's Hank. He just let me sit here. Yeah, this is the curls coming."
Yeah, it sounds like
So
me playing Madden.
exactly,
Just keep running the same play. It's not broke, don't
exactly.
fix it.
And he loves to run against cover two teams, right? So you play like the Bills or something like that. He's gonna be drilling Hank, and I get it. It's like an old school cover two beater, but it gets a little redundant that way. And like I said, the screens can get frustrating if you're playing like a fast team. Like if you go against a fast defense that's ready to can tackle, and you're running those screens, man, it's not gonna work, right? Like I said, playing the Bills, they're a sound tackling team, right? That's not going to work. Those screens aren't going to work. So you have to. That's what I would say about him. It's just he's so up and down as a play caller consistently. And like, let's say Garrett Wilson went down, yeah, he would be lost if Garrett Wilson went down. So that's kind of my thing because Henry Ruggs went down. It took him a while to figure out how to get this offense going without that X wide receiver that he needs that he can set up for everything that he likes to do. So that's what I would say is the downfall with him, in my opinion. So, because to be honest, he's way better of a quarterback coach. If you really, really, really wanted to hire him and hire him as a quarterback coach, because then your quarterbacks would just play a whole lot better right away. It's just as a play caller, game to game, it gets super average. So that's kind of the thing. You're gonna be, wow, that's an awesome game plan, and the next game you're like, what are you doing? That's ugly. Why would you even set that up and start that thought process of this playing? And then of course you're gonna be like, okay, we're up. Why aren't you running the ball sometimes? Because like I said, he doesn't like to run the ball, and sometimes you want to run the ball, especially if like it's cold or something like that. He's not gonna care. He's gonna keep passing. Some people like that. Some people don't, and sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. So those are some of the frustrating things I would say. So yeah.
Well, we just mentioned the end of that wild card round, and I had a question in here specifically about that
Yeah.
situational play calling, and not just in clutch situations. I know I saw that stat that Derek Carr is, I think he was number one in comebacks or something along those lines. He's a clutch quarterback or whatnot.
Yeah.
But under Greg Olson, the situational play calling, not just in those clutch situations, but in those third and shorts, those gotta have it situations. How would you?
Zone.
Yeah, red zone. How would you describe him as a situational play caller?
Yeah, a situational play caller. To be honest, I really didn't like him as a situational play caller. Because like I was talking about the end of the game, man, you keep calling those curl flats, man. I mean, this is the NFL. Keep calling curl flat, man. We're not gonna be fooled eventually, right? And it kind of drilled those plays a lot. Even the Colts game. When they went to the Colts last year in 2021, and they went and beat the Colts when they weren't supposed to. I mean, a lot of that was just Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr was making plays late in that game. That was not really Greg Olson, because the play that they called to Hunter Renfrow, that big play that Hunter Renfrow made, that sliding catch, Renfrow's not even open, right? Originally. And Derek Carr dodged somebody and made a play, right? So, and that's what I was talking about. Sometimes you need that quarterback that can make plays with him a little bit, because he can get a little redundant in situational football. Okay, so I mean, and last year on third down, he wasn't really good either. Third down, they really struggled. They were really good with John Gruden in third down as a play caller, but with Greg Olson as a play caller, they were not good on third down. So, but those are a couple things like situationally. He's not the best coordinator there either. That's why I was talking about him being average, because there's like some things he does really well, and then some things he just does not do well at all. And you could see with his track record why he hasn't been an OC that much, over time because of those things. But that's what I was talking about. Is it all quarterback thought process with him, or do you want an actual great play caller too? So that's kind of my thing with him.
Yeah, and I think another big point that we'll be looking at with the new Jets OC is how well they mold the scheme to their players, because it felt like with Mike LaFleur, there wasn't enough of that, and they did their best to try to build the roster to fit what they're going to try to do with LaFleur bringing over the scheme from San Francisco. But as it went on, it didn't really feel like LaFleur was doing the best at kind of molding the play calls to get the most out of who he had. So how well do you think Olson did that with the Raiders?
I think he did that really well. That was something he did well. I think he does mold, the offense around the players around them. Like he got the most out of Hunter Renfrow. He kind of let Hunter Renfrow loose. Hunter Renfrow ran routes a little more tighter this year with Josh McDaniels than he did last year. Last year, he's more freedom. He's just, we saw all the routes he ran last year, right? And even he was able to kind of isolate him in the red zone when they were struggling in the red zone. Hunter Renfrow had 9 red zone touchdowns last year, and that was because Greg Olson stepped in and started to find ways to use him in the red zone a little better. So, I that's one thing that he does do. He does maximize the players around them. Like, he's not going to put somebody in a position where they aren't going to be successful. He's always going to find the best way to maximize the players. That's probably one of his positives is him, kind of, finding ways to get players the football that need to get the football, getting players that, as a slot guy, he's not going to be playing outside that much. If he's a short, like a choice route guy who runs a lot of good choice routes, that's what he's going to do. If they're a deep threat, they're going to run deep routes. It's not really, I'm going to, put you into my offense and you have to fit it. I'm going to take my West Coast offense and I'm going to build it around the players that are there. So that is one good thing that he does do. He kind of builds the scheme around the players and not the scheme, not the putting the players inside the scheme.
Well, so then maybe this question's a bit redundant based off that answer, but is there any types of players that you think he would want for his scheme? I mean, it's one thing if to say you can build an offense around the players you already have, but maybe an offensive play caller has some preferences, maybe on the offensive line or receivers, or I don't know, or you think he's just fully fluid and can just mold it around the players?
I think he's pretty fluid, to be honest. And you guys, the players the Jets have, Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, I think is enough for him. I think he can use Elijah Moore, inside, run a lot of those choice routes and things like that. And then he can mix it up with Garrett Wilson, running those choice routes. So I think what he would probably do is probably have Garrett and Elijah kind of be the main targets around that offense. And then, everybody else to kind of fit in, get in where you fit in. But, he'd have like Elijah run a choice route on one route and then maybe isolate, Garrett Wilson on the opposite side and then kind of mix it up, both those guys. That's what I would see him doing. But, the Jets have some good pieces there that I don't know if he'd have to go find players. Because to be honest, he is a totally different OC when he has that X. When he has that Allen Robinson type of guy, has that guy that can play outside, also can move around. That's when he really is a really good offensive coordinator. It's just when he loses that guy, he just really doesn't have any plan after that. And that's kind of the big thing with him. So I think the players that are there are fine. I don't think he's got to go try to find guys for his scheme. It's not going to be like some different coaches that need certain players. But I think the players there kind of already fit anyways.
Yeah, that's definitely different than I think what we've heard since the Jets brought their new staff in. I think
it's different than every offensive coordinator they've had since I've been watching them, I think.
Yeah, as soon as Saleh, LaFleur came in, we were just looking at the free agents. Who's on the Niners? We want Juszczyk, we want Mostert, we want all the Niners players in our team, and they got some of them. But that definitely seems a lot different. Laken Tomlinson, who does not need to be discussed. But hearing our last two answers made me very excited. There's one guy I'm thinking about, and that's Elijah Moore. He's definitely someone who did not really find a role in this offense. I mean, he was winning his routes. He eventually moved into the slot and got open, but the Jets just could not get him the ball as much as they should have been relative to his talent. But it seems like with Greg Olson, Elijah Moore will find that fit. So looking at this offense as a whole, if you were to give the average Jets fan sort of an example to look at, another offense, another team, or another coach around the league that kind of is a close resemblance to what he likes to do, who would you point to, which team or which coach, as a close match to what kind of represents what he does?
I would say Sean McVay. Sean McVay is definitely
Sounds
the
good to me.
closest. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what he likes to do. He's just basically he's a poor man. So it's not you're not gonna get the Sean McVay play calling as much, right? But I mean, he comes from that tree, man. He comes from the Gruden, the Sean McVay. He worked with all those guys. I mean, they're kind of in the same build. It's kind of the same thought process. You're gonna see the condensed formations, right? He used to get so he lined up Renfro outside a lot more, but Renfro really wasn't outside. So he would put Renfro inside the numbers, isolate him, right? And that's something that Sean McVay does with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is still kind of a slot guy, right? But you'll isolate him inside the slot, and so he can still work inside, but it's technically not inside. And I think that's a lot of things that Greg Olson does too. He'll condense things. So like somebody like Elijah Moore, he'll condense it for him. So he is playing inside still, but it's still one-on-one isolated. So he does a lot of things like that that Sean McVay likes to do. Is just he's just more pass happy. I'll just say that. I mean, Sean McVay definitely likes to run the ball. Definitely, kind of likes to get the run game going. And I think Greg Olson's just a little bit more pass happy than him.
Right.
But so that's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of, it's so up and down with him. It's inconsistent. So, I mean, 1 week he will frustrate you. You'd be like, man, what the hell is he doing? Then 1 week you're like, man, that's awesome game plan. So it's that's really what it is.
Sounds a lot like Michael Floor. Honestly.
It does. Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard. It's because sometimes if the guy's not the greatest play caller with the West Coast, it's so like it's not that different from West Coast to West Coast offense.
Right.
That if the teams have seen it, they know certain schemes, and if the guy's not a great play caller, then sometimes it can kind of get redundant at the end of the year. But yeah,
when offenses aren't having success, I feel like one of the top things I hear from fans is, where's the creativity? And maybe that's just a straw man argument or something like that, because sometimes, I mean, the creative trick plays don't work out. I mean, the Jets have seen plenty of those plays fall flat on their face. Would you describe Olson as a creative play caller? Not maybe, I guess just the trick plays, but in terms of, I guess there are other ways to be creative that aren't just razzle dazzle. Or I mean, based off your answer earlier about Hank and the curl flat concepts, I can probably predict where this is going. Do you think he's more of a vanilla play caller?
Like I said, it depends on the coverage he's playing, really, to be honest. Like if he's playing let's say he's playing like a man match cover 7 team, he does really well. To be honest, I think he attacks those coverages really well. But like cover 2 teams, like teams that kind of just play quarters, cover 2, he doesn't do really well, right? Because then he gets kind of since that's such like a, how do I say this, kind of like a vanilla coverage itself, he gets vanilla, right? With like man match, it's not vanilla. It's everything's moving around. There's a lot of guys, so he has to be more creative. But when you're playing a vanilla coverage like the Chiefs last year, they didn't even play like what they usually do. They just went straight cover 2 against him, and he struggled, right? And then the same thing with the Bengals. They didn't even try to mix it up that too much with him in the second half. They just went straight cover 2, and he struggled a little bit. So he struggles against vanilla looks, which is weird to say, right? You figure some coaches, they face the vanilla looks, they just start tearing them up. With the more complex looks where it forces his mind to be creative, he's better. But that's how teams can beat him, is they can just get vanilla on him, and then he's going to call the basic vanilla looks to beat him. Like, I play cover 2, I'm gonna call smash and put a corner out or try to beat the honey hole. Like, it's just, and somebody just drops back, picks it off. It's just It's things like that he can get vanilla against kind of just basic looks.
So he would struggle in practice against the Jets because they play a lot of shell looks. He would struggle against the Bills, but I think he would do well against the Pats and Dolphins.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Those Pats games, maybe we could at least pick up a Pats win for one.
We could split the series finally.
Right? Yeah. That's what it is, man. Man to man, those man match things, he does really well, man. Like the Chargers game last year, I mean, Derek Carr missed a lot of wide open guys. He had some wide open guys against that cover 7. Those
Don't say that. He's our only hope, please. we can't have the Derek Carr negativity right now.
But it's true though. He did. They won the game though. They won the game.
All right. That's a difference. We'll take that.
32.
All right, we'll take that.
It just probably should have been like 49-32. The game should have been close at all.
The fact that they're scoring more than 17 points would already be a positive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
already an upgrade for us. But at this point, You've shared with us quite a few strengths, positives with Olson, quite a few weaknesses as well. If you had to sum it all up, in a nice package, some of the biggest pluses that he brings to the table, some of the biggest minuses, how would you sum up his overall strengths and weaknesses?
I think he'll maximize the players, right? So like the young players that are there, he'll maximize those guys. You're gonna get the best out of them. You'll probably see a really good year from Garrett Wilson if he came in there. So yeah, that would be the big one because that's like his ex wide receiver, the Cooper Cup, the main guy. Man, you're gonna eat with that type of guy, right? That's kind of you'll see those guys gotta take a step. You might even see Zach Wilson take a little bit of a step too, or battle Derek Carr or something like that. If he did come over, if it ended up being Carr, you might see Zach Wilson get better, and Derek Carr got hurt or something like that, or or did it end up didn't playing well? You had to play Zach. Zach might play better than you think, right? So that's kind of the main thing. But of course, the weakness is that he can get just stuck in some concepts, and the wide receiver screens are going to frustrate you because you're going to be like, why are we running screens so much sometimes? And it's get certain looks and certain coverages. He's going to try to screen you to death instead of running the football. So I would say those are a couple of things. I would sum them up. So it's wide receiver screens, a little bit redundant, but you're going to get the best out of some of your players. So,
and quickly before you wrap it up, Ben, I just want to say, hearing you describe him, I can't help but think this would be a positive thing for Zach Wilson. Some of the things you said. I mean, the way creative, mobile quarterback who can create on his own could thrive in that scheme, and just hearing some of his quarterback coaching successes, especially Goff. I mean, that was a big one because he had just as bad of a rookie year as you could compare to what Zach Wilson has done, and then he quickly broke out with Greg Olson. So hearing all that, it does seem like he would be a positive hire for Zach Wilson, and it seems like the Jets do want to, get out as much of him as they can, still believe in him. So I think when they interview Olson, they really might find that if Zach Wilson is really still in their mind, that he's a good hire for him.
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing. Is Zach Wilson still in their mind? I mean,
right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I think he's going to be on the team, but they're not going to pencil him in as a starter. He might not even be QB2 next year. I mean, it might be developmental QB3. It depends what route they go. I think if they bring in Carr, that's a conversation for a different podcast. Marcus, you know what? We're going to do the Derek Carr pod, so we might have to bring you back on here to talk all things Derek Carr. But last thing on Greg Olson.
Okay.
In your opinion, your expert opinion, if the Jets hire him, do you think it's a good move? Would you say this is a good hire for the Jets? Did you say this is a mid hire they could have done better? Because I will say, you look at some of the candidates that they're considering. For another team, maybe you would say Greg Olson, all right, average offensive coordinator. But you look at what the Jets are looking for. Primarily, it seems like they want somebody with experience. And then you look at that candidate pool to who's going to come in under a head coach who might be on the hot seat and have to deal with Zach Wilson. It's like Darrell Bevel. I mean, we've only heard Darrell Bevel. We've heard the Pats tight ends coach has been floated around, Marcus Brady. So the candidate pool right now, it doesn't seem maybe as strong as it could be. So with that in mind, if the Jets hire him, do you think it's a good move? Or would you be happy if you're a Jets fan?
Compared to those candidates, yeah, I would be happy compared to those guys. Because I mean, all those guys. I mean, I guess Marcus Brady, maybe he could have worked something out. I mean, he has some CFL stuff. I don't know, but it was Darrell Bevel. I couldn't even believe that he's even.
I think we're recording that one next, so we'll see what the Darrell Bevel guy has to say.
I can't believe he's getting another shot. I mean, I don't know what he's got. He must be a great guy, but I think it'd be a good hire compared to those other guys. I mean, if it was like if you had some big other OCs that maybe have a chance or something like that, I would say it was more of a mid hire. But I mean, for what I mean, they still are a defensive team, and I think he'd be a pretty good hire. I'm not gonna say he'd be the best hire in the world. I'm not gonna go out there and try to say, oh my God, he'd be a home run, because it's not gonna be a home run. But I think he would be a better hire than the guys that they have out there right now, just because what he could do for the quarterbacks in the building, just because he's such a good quarterback coach, in my opinion. I think that's really what's underrated with him, that he can develop quarterbacks. And that's one thing that he will do better than those other guys for sure.
Marcus, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You were great. I have to not fall into the trap that I think I fell in when we did the head coaching candidate series 2 years ago, and we had a guy come on and we talked about Pat Fitzgerald, and he was so good that afterwards I was ready for the Jets to hire Pat Fitzgerald. So I have to not fall into that trap, Marcus. I
Okay.
won't equate Greg Olson with you, but you were awesome.
Thanks.
Where can our listeners find you? Because I love just following smart football minds. I mean, obviously you post about the Raiders, but you do post a lot about quarterback play, and I think our listeners should definitely go shoot you a follow. So where can they find you, and where can they read your stuff?
At the Mark John NFL, you can find me on Twitter there. For all my stuff, I do. Tape Don't Lie is my YouTube channel, so go ahead and check that out. We're gonna be doing all types of the Raiders need a quarterback, so I'm gonna do all types of quarterback stuff there. And
You
I
want
do
Zach Wilson?
do I want? No, I'm good. I appreciate that though. But yeah, so I do a whole bunch of quarterback stuff there, and of course a whole bunch of draft things. So we cover the whole draft. I go out to the combine, and so definitely check that out. So we grind that out. So
Awesome.
check that out there for Tape Don't Lie, and of course Silver and Black Pride, SB Nation, and then I got a quarterback podcast I do called Little Pocket Awareness. So check that out too. So yeah, there's all the places you can find me.
Is it a little pocket awareness, or is it little pocket awareness? Because if it's little pocket awareness, Zach Wilson would be a great guest for you guys.
it's a little pocket awareness.
Okay,
So,
all right, then
yeah.
it wouldn't. Yeah, it doesn't work then. All right, Marcus, thank you so much for coming on. You were great. All right, that's Greg Olson. Everybody, let us know what you think? Tweet us at CYJ Pod. Comment in the YouTube comments below. Greg Olson, next Jets offensive coordinator. We'll see.